Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I'm going to call the order. The Riverside County Habitat Conservation Agency Board of Directors meeting. It's Thursday, May 17th, 11 a.m. Would you please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our flag? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, we're going to go move to the roll call. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
That will be a login. Everybody should see something on their screen.
We have no screens, I believe. Maybe the touch
Here,
screens.
it should be there.
Oh, we have a new system. Oh, all right. All right. We got a second, and if you'll just vote yes, I'm going to assume that's going to, or maybe no, and you can, that'll register your presence. Okay, very good. All right, that takes care of the roll. We're going to move on to public comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
I have no requests.
Really? With all the people in the audience?
I'm sorry.
That's crazy. All right. Well, that moves us to item number 5A, minutes. We have the summary from the minutes attached to our agenda. What is the pleasure of the agency?
Move approval.
A motion from Temecula. Second. Oh, you do this on the screen too. All right. Let's go ahead and vote. All right, and the minutes are approved unanimously. That moves us to the consent and policy calendar. We have multiple items on the consent calendar. All information was included in your packets. Are there any requests from the public to speak on this?
I have no requests.
We have no requests again. Anybody would like to pull anything amongst the consent calendar? Hearing none. Move approval. Got a motion and a second.
Beat you to it.
And please vote on your touch screen. And that is approved, 6-0. Very good. That moves us forward to reports and discussions very quickly. We're going to, I believe we have an item, I've had a request from our executive director to go ahead and move item E to the front of the reports and discussion. If there's no objections to that, we're going to move on with item number E, potential full consolidation of rchca staff and operations with WRCOG. I believe Mr. Bishop, you or maybe staff has the report on this.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think most of you know about this issue, but just for historical purposes, you all know that WRCOG has been acting as the administrator for the RCHCA for the last few years, and that action was taken after the former general manager retired, and then the county and RCHCA board members had some discussion about how we might be able to make some moves to make the agency more cost effective in the future, and succinctly whether or not there was a need for a full-time general manager to be put in place. And so those discussions led to the development and execution of an MOU between the RCHCA and the county and WRCOG that allowed for WRCOG to provide the management services for RCHCA. And it's been 2 years that this process has been in place. I think by all accounts, and I know the chair was part of the effort to initiate this, by all accounts it's been successful, and the RCHCA has achieved significant savings, and we've been able to also embark on a few things that we've heard are important to you, such as initiate a delisting effort and also to work on improving public access to some of the RCHCA areas. Now, despite the success of it, we've noticed also in the last 2 years that there's a few kinks in the process, and the one is kind of one that we envisioned anyways, and that is the fact that we have an agency that has a mix of WRCOG staff and RCHCA staff, and the RCHCA staff being county employees. And so that creates some procedural and potential legal issues that we thought over time needed to be overcome. And we knew that this moment was coming, but we wanted to make sure that we would have about a 2-year trial period for the RCHCA staff to integrate with WRCOG and make sure that everything works. And so that evolution has kind of brought us to this point where we've held some discussions with the county about whether or not we wanted to continue the arrangement as is, or if we could actually improve upon it, and then have improve upon it, meaning a full consolidation of the RCHCA into WRCOG. And that's where we've all landed at the staff level. I'll also let you know that we've had these discussions already with the WRCOG elected officials, and just in the past week or so, so you're not being left behind. We're just going as quickly as we can with the committees as we move forward. But last week, our executive committee gave us direction to move toward a full consolidation. So under this full consolidation model, here's what would happen. The RCA maintains its status as a separate JPA, a separate entity. You as a board will continue to meet separately, so this is not something that all of a sudden your role as RCHCA board members goes away and is taken over by the WRCOG Executive Committee. So for all practical purposes, the entity maintains its distinction as a separate JPA. The board will continue to meet. The only real change is that the existing county employees would transition over to WRCOG as full-time employees, and we think that that would take care of those personnel issues and difficulties that exist. So if I want to yell at Brian, I don't know whether or not I can do that. I certainly can't promote or fire him. That actually is something that rests with the county. So that's just kind of, not, I'm picking on Brian, I think he's fantastic. That would never happen. But that just kind of gives you a nutshell. Plus the employees operate under a different policy and personnel manual than we do. They're county employees, yet they're not on the county system, so they don't receive updates from the county with regard to, personnel and other activities that they should. So we've spoken with the county employees. They're ready and willing to move over to us, and we've also will maintain county council to provide in this role sort of consultant services to us to continue to be our council. I see no reason to move off of that model. So we would, as part of this, enter into an agreement with county council to continue to provide our CHC services. So in a nutshell, although we think this is going to continue, this evolution will actually complete what we anticipated would occur. There's really no net change to you as board members or to the distinction of the JPA itself. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions. There are 3 recommendations that move us in the direction of the full consolidation. That's to continue to work with county staff toward this end. We will also continue to work with county council to make sure that any and all agreements are in place and can be executed at the appropriate time. And then also there would be a need for a JPA amendment that would articulate this, and the JPA amendment would need to be circulated to each of the 11 members of RCHCA for consideration and execution. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and certainly would defer to you as one of the initiators of this to comment.
I appreciate that. I do have comments, but I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. Actually, first, let me ask, are there any requests from the public to speak on this item?
I have no requests.
All right, now I'm going to hand it to my colleagues. If you have any questions, any clarifications, if there's any concerns, that now would be the time to go ahead and have those concerns brought forward. All right, so hearing none of that, I just want to say that I want to recognize at the end of the term of our former executive director, Carolyn Sins Luna, I was vice chair, and Ben Benoit from Wildemar was actually chair, and Mr. Benoit brought me into the discussion about this. This was actually something that we all kind of formulated together, and we really didn't know what the future of this organization was going to be or how it was going to move forward. At some points in time, it was discussed that potentially going ahead and bringing in WRCOG at that time would be a way to streamline services and make things a little less expensive, maybe make things a little bit better. And there was resistance. There was a lot of resistance, as a matter of fact, and a lot of questions. And I'm not going to go through all the details, but the bottom line is that eventually I think common sense won over the day. And the experiment has progressed much better than, at least as well as was expected. So I'm personally very pleased about how we've moved forward. I think there were concerns at WRCOG, and then there was a fight with RCA. Again, I'm going to leave a lot of that out, but the bottom line is we're here now today. I think this is a great extension, and the consolidation does provide security for some of our employees of the RCHCA, and I can't imagine being more thrilled about this than anything else. So, especially as it pretty much revolves all around a small rat, which should probably be called a mouse. I agree.
Right.
Right? Okay.
I said it. It should be.
So, with that said, in the coming years, we're going to be looking at delisting the Stevens kangaroo rat and fulfilling the mission of this board, at least the primary mission of this board, and then the secondary mission of maintenance is going to be something that's kept on into perpetuity. And having that under the WRCOG umbrella seems like it makes the most sense that I could possibly imagine. So, with that, I'll entertain a motion, unless there's any other comments.
Move approval.
All right, move approval. Okay, here we go. We got a second, and now the computer's asking us for a vote. If you'll please register your vote. I like the old-fashioned method. I don't know. It's just, nobody knows. All right, we've got an approval. It's 6 yeses, 0 noes, and 0 abstentions for those watching in the cheap seats at home. All right, that moves us on to item 7A. We've got approval from the fiscal year 2018-2019 operating budget. I believe our Miss Princess Hester will be handling the staff report.
I don't see the presentation. Good morning. I'm Princess Hester. I'm your Administrative Services Officer for the RCHCA. And today I'm presenting the fiscal year 2018-2019 operating budget. So for the RCHCA, this proposed operating budget, our structure is based off of a couple things. We have the RCHCA General Fund. That fund has our contracts. We also have the Lake Matthews Endowment. And under General Fund, we fund our administration, our educational and outreach programs, and land management activities for RCHCA-owned lands outside of Lake Matthews. We also have in our budget the Lake Matthews Endowment. That is a wasting endowment, and it funds land management activities at the Lake Matthews Reserve, biological research, and surveys. Our staff, we currently have 5 full-time staff employees, and in this budget, we're requesting 1 additional full-time employee to assist with some of the contractual obligations that we have. This will be an entry-level or a mid-level biologist, and it'll be funded with our general fund and also with some of those contracts. Our revenue sources for general funds include our SKR mitigation fees, and which are transferred from member agencies, our interest earned, and our deposit-based fees. Our expenditures are for administration, operations, and land management, and community outreach and education. And for the general fund, our total anticipated revenue is about $900,000. We have about $510,000 that we anticipate as far as expenditures, which will leave us with a savings of about $400,000 in this budget. For the Lake Matthews Endowment, it is a wasting endowment, and those expenditures will fund land management activities, biological monitoring and research, and we draw from the Lake Matthews Endowment. So our anticipated fund draws is approximately $570,000, and of course our expenditures would match that amount. So in summary, what you'll see in this budget is an overall increase of about 14% in revenue, and that's attributed to our mitigation fees that we've collected and also our interest. We'll continue to closely monitor our expenditures and our revenues so that our financial goals are achieved. And any savings that we realize, we will transfer and reduce the amount that we draw down from the Lake Matthews Reserve. So one of the things I want to point out, I know when you were going through your budget, you'll see a shift in some of the costs that we have. So overall, we're anticipating an increase of about $35,000. But what you'll notice is you'll see that it looks like the Lake Matthews budget is more funded in salaries and benefits. And what that is just a shift, because before, when we were under the county with our budget, we had to count that the salary expenditures in a separate appropriation. Now I'm able to move those expenses into the correct appropriation, which is for salaries and benefits. And so you'll see that shift now. So if you look at what we funded last year with contractual services, you'll see that amount was like $200,000. That's been reduced to $52,000 this year because those costs are now moved into the proper category. So that's the difference that you'll see in the budget when you were looking at it. So at this point, I will entertain questions, and my requested action is to have you adopt the RCHCA Budget Resolution number 2018-001. This is a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Riverside County Habitat Conservation Agency adopting the fiscal year 2018-2019 agency budget for the Riverside County Habitat Conservation Agency.
Thank you very much. I'm going to see if any of my colleagues have any questions at this time. Sure.
Come on. So Princess, actually, the way the budget's being done, it's going to properly reflect all of the line items in particular.
Absolutely.
I mean, and more accurately than it was before, correct?
Absolutely. And through the consolidation, we will realize some additional cost savings because there are some things that we are charged for duplicatively with the County of Riverside that we will no longer have those expenditures when we transition to WRCOG, and you'll be able to see those savings. In addition, this arrangement will allow us to deposit more into our fund balance to cover the cost for retirement expenditures for the employees that'll be working for WRCOG. So this structure really does create a better financial package for us.
Yeah, good.
Excellent. I'm going to check to see, do we have any written requests to speak from the public on this?
No, sir.
I didn't expect so. If there are no further questions, looks like there are none. I think we're ready for a motion. What is the pleasure of the agency?
Move approval.
All right, so if I could get you to register those votes. And all votes have been cast, and we have a unanimous decision by the agency board with all members voting in the affirmative. Thank you very much. That moves us to the status update on the Stevens Kangaroo Rat recovery efforts. This is item 7B, and Princess Hester is once again here with the report.
Thank you. Princess Hester, Administrative Services Officer for the rchca, and I'm presenting our recovery updates on Stevens Kangaroo Rat. So staff, we continue to work with United States Fish and Wildlife Service to demonstrate recovery for Stevens Kangaroo Rat. As you know, this is a process. In March, we, with our Vice Chair, Mr. Manos, and Marianne Edwards, and with the support of our Chair, Mayor Ingram, we visited the office in Sacramento on an advocacy trip for SKR at the state capitol. And we were very well received. We had meetings with the regional director from Fish and Wildlife and also his staff. And originally our message at that point was to urge them to finalize the 1997 draft recovery plan. And just to refresh your memory about that, we've been operating with a draft recovery plan for several years, since 1997. And one of the reasons why we thought it was important to have this plan finalized is because we just want to make sure that there are no additional requirements added to that plan. We've worked and we've done a great job in Western Riverside demonstrating species recovery, and so that was really our message. And then we found out when we got there that to our benefit, the draft recovery plan didn't need to be formally adopted. So basically, we've been using that as a blueprint going forward. We'll continue to do that, and it doesn't necessarily need to have an adoption prior to impede us from moving on to the next step. So that was kind of a good thing. And in this next slide, I'd just like to show you sort of the process. So in the green area, these are the things that we're currently working on in partnership with the United States Fish and Wildlife. So on the rchca side, we're working to develop the working groups. You approved a habitat suitability model. We'll be working on that starting in July. And then the next step for us will be to work on this range-wide monitoring protocol. That is where we need to start working with northern San Diego, because as we've learned that SKR's geographical range extends into northern San Diego. And then later down the line, we'll work on our genetic study. So while we are doing our side, Fish and Wildlife, what they are doing is a species status assessment. This is a change and an update in their practices. This was implemented in April. I'd like to take the credit for it, but it was implemented in April, and basically it streamlines the process for species review that Fish and Wildlife is required to do. They're going to be working on their 5-factor analysis, and that kind of includes like a threat analysis to see, have the threats to the species changed, has the environment changed, and what good things have been done to protect it. And then they are going to do a proposed rule for downlisting. This will be a great success for us, and I think that Riverside County rchca can take credit for it. When this happens, this success will be a major attribution to our effort. And we realize that for our agency, nothing changes. We'll continue to manage SKR, we'll continue to manage the habitat, we'll continue to work with that group in the green area to develop an overall management strategy that is used throughout the range. And after they do that, the next step would be to then petition Fish and Wildlife to support the coordinating efforts in order to work on their delisting side. So it's a two-pronged process. It's like first they downlist, and then they look at all of the research and the surveys that are provided through that process, and then they go to the next rule, which would be to potential delist. So it's not a time frame associated with it. It is something that sort of takes time, but I think that we are really benefited by having them move in the direction towards what we're working on. One of the things that we're going to be requesting from Fish and Wildlife, I'm working on a proposal to request that they fund the efforts to support the range-wide monitoring protocol. That'll be a big effort for us to do, and it'll require someone to come together and work on generating collaboration through those biological groups, along with the implementation group in Western Riverside and in Northern San Diego. And we feel as though, we've done a lot as far as our financial support for this process. And we think that since this is something that the service is going to then adopt and implement range-wide, this is something that they should financially support. So I'm preparing a proposal to submit to them to request that. And hopefully that's something that we'll be able to achieve. And then, so, like I said, then once we do that, and this will be continuing, then after that's done, then they'll evaluate our survey data, like from our habitat suitability model, from our range-wide protocol, from the genetic study. They'll evaluate our translocation process and all the things that we have done in support of this particular process. And then they'll use those tools in order to demonstrate that species is sustainable, and then they'll look at delisting. I said that wrong. Okay, so this is a receiving file, and I will entertain any questions you have right now.
All right, go for
Have, Princess, have we heard anything from Northern San Diego County other than Camp Pendleton, other than the naval base near Fallbrook?
Not as of yet. And so, but I am working with them to identify what Ms. Edwards is talking about is that when this plan was originally created, it was identified that there were certain areas where SKR existed in Northern San Diego. That was Camp Pendleton, the Lake Henshaw area, and the Fallbrook detachment. The military installations do have a habitat conservation plan where they actively manage for SKR. And if they count those populations, then it would potentially eliminate our requirement to actually work with Northern San Diego on their NCCP, as their priorities are different from ours, and that may smooth our process out a little bit.
So, and I think you're being a little bit modest when you said you'd like to take credit for the fact that they're now reviewing their policies. And honestly, it was the push with rchca that really kind of surprised them and forced them to take a look at those policies, because they've never had to do that before. So don't be so modest. I mean, you've done an outstanding job, and I think it was the endowment that would fund monitoring in perpetuity, and then I think it was the app that put us over the top when she talked about the data aggregation app that our CHCA has developed, so that Pendleton and the naval detachment, that everybody's able to plug their data into one place, so we don't have to go out and reach and grab and try and disaggregate all that data. So it really, you really deserve a lot of credit, Princess, for as far as you've taken the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think one of the things that was really interesting after the meeting was, the way governments are using Twitter now. And for Fish and Wildlife to go ahead and tweet something positive about the rchca, I was like, all right, this is getting weird now.
That just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, and I didn't even know they had a Twitter account until they said something about us, so that's awesome. Okay, this is a receive and file. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? None? All right, then we're going to move forward to item C. Or 7C, excuse me, report on educational outreach programs. And for this, we have Brian Shomo up.
Oh, we have Princess.
Excuse me, we've had a change. Excuse me.
That's okay.
All right, Princess, go for it.
So Princess Hester, Administrative Services Officer, and this is report on our educational outreach programs. So we hold events at our reserves to commemorate Endangered Species Day and to just celebrate endangered species. This year we had over 700 students at the reserve, and we use the theme where our world and the natural world meet. And as an added component to this program, we provide art paper to the students, to the schools, and then the kids go back and they do an art project to demonstrate their understanding of that theme where our world and the natural world meet. And once we receive the artwork back. We allow for community members and staff to judge the artwork, and we select a couple of winners in a few categories. One of our categories is we do a couple of grand prize winners at each school. We'll do a few runners up. We do a most original, which is the artwork that we felt depicted that theme in the most original way, and then we'll also do an award for creativity. And so we went back to the schools. We give the students a crystal eagle. It has RCHCA Endangered Species Day on it. A lot of times the parents will come to the award assemblies. It's really an awesome thing. And in each one of your packets, you have thank you notes from various students with the program. I think I tried to give you guys each different ones because we get hundreds of them. But I'd like to share a story of a young man, right? Okay, we also had our Earth Day event at Lake Matthews this year. This was the first annual for that, and we had students from Moreno Valley. They are from Sunny Meadows Elementary School. But back to the ESA event. So I want to tell you about a student. His name is Dianco Guzman. He's a 6th grader. And Dianco, I talked with his teacher. Dianco won the award for grand prize, and I have a photo. So here's all the students we see, and Dianco and his parents are on the right, and that's the teacher, Miss Wakefield. She's with Hawthorne. She's participated in this program for about 8 years now, and she's retiring. But Dianco did this amazing piece of art where our world and the natural world meet. So his idea of that was to draw the world on the back of Stephen's kangaroo rat. I wish I could make it like super big. It was really, really neat. Talked with a teacher about this student, and she told me his story. Dianco is a 6th grade student who has struggled all year academically. He struggles with math. He struggles with reading. He has a difficult time working with his peers. And for him to receive this award, it was the most amazing thing that ever happened to him. She said that when he returned from the field trip, all he talked about was becoming a biologist. All he talked about was that he wanted to be better in school so that he could learn to work with animals, and she hasn't been able to keep him quiet about it. And it's just a testimony to what you allow us to do. And I'm really thankful that you allow us to reach out and to teach kids that are coming behind us to learn and care about the environment. She wrote a letter. I included the teacher's letter in your packet. And in that letter, she talks about how we're giving students the opportunity to experience the outdoors. And these are students that sometimes don't even go to parks. Like, these are students that, you know, their family's mission is to just keep food on the table and keep the day-to-day going. And here we are allowing these students to participate in that environment. And so I have a thank you letter from Dianco, and I'd like to read it. And I think they're going to put this on the screen for me. So Dianco he says, I would like to thank the RCHCA from the start when they gave us the backpacks. And also, we went to Sycamore Canyon, and it was so fun because I saw animals I never saw before in person. The thing I am very thankful for is the trophy, and I'm going to keep my art forever. And on the right side is the trophy that we actually give them. It's like a crystal eagle. And on his trophy, he says, soar through the sky like a hawk and complete your goals. So awesome. With that, I'd just like to say thank you so much again for allowing us to offer this. And without you, we wouldn't be able to make this possible. So, and that's a receive and file report.
Thank you.
Great job.
Amazing. Good job. All right. Have Corona ringing in. Come on. Hi, Dick.
Thank you. I'm Dick Haley. I'm an alternate, but I was on this committee a couple of years ago, and I have to relay this story, and a lot of you have already heard it, and so you're going to hear it again. I was talking to my granddaughter, and I told him I had to come to the RCHC meeting, and she said, what's that? So I told her, and, you know, I'm an old guy, and she's young and cute and smart, and she goes, that's wonderful. And I said, why? She goes, Papa, as old as you are, you have to remember that the bunnies were here before us. So we have to take care of them. So on behalf of Haley Proctor, who is now 16 going on 40, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's phenomenal. The Some of the artwork and the thank you notes are spectacular. We're obviously having an impressive impact on the young minds in the community, and that is through the effort of the staff. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone, for everything you guys are doing on that. I believe this is also a receive and file. If there are any other comments, no request for comment from the audience. I didn't expect that. Very good. We're going to move on to item 7D. And now Princess has gone back to her seat, so I think Brian is, okay, Brian Chomo will have the report on the Stevens Kangaroo Rat Reserve Management and Monitoring efforts. Go for it.
Oh. Thank you. Let me fast forward this here. I try to be brief. I know some of you have a meeting to go to afterwards, so I tend to get wordy, but I'll try to keep it brief today. Really, I want to introduce first is Scott Curry. He's our newest employee at WRCOG. Between Scott Curry and Harry Sandoval, the biologist, has really allowed me to free up a lot of time. He comes to us as a former supervisor of crews working on dairies, and so his ability to supervise crews has really freed up some of my time to go after some alternative funding, which is what mostly this presentation is about today. So we're going to talk about the fire fuel, habitat management, SKR management, and security and patrol updates, and some other little monitoring. So the fire fuel habitat management, if you recall, we went after some funding. This is the SRA funding. A lot of folks in unincorporated areas, state responsibility areas, pay a fire tax. It's not a very popular thing, as most taxes are, but it is nice when a little bit of that funding comes back to the constituents of those areas and they see some work getting done. So we applied for it. It was one of the largest allocations of that grant funding in the state. They came down and they filmed it, one of our projects here, for a good promotional PR campaign for them. In addition, they gave us an additional 2,200 hours, which is about $45,000 worth of funding to do continued fuel management. Oftentimes, fuel management is also good for SKR habitat, reducing brush, grasses, that kind of thing, ladder fuels that would spread an uncontrolled wildfire. So we basically put them to good work, good use of funding, and hired a CCC crew. They put in 2.5 miles of fuel breaks under Scott's supervision along Rawson Road. This is in southwest Riverside County outside of Temecula through the Diamond Valley Lake Skinner area. We not only widened the fuel breaks, which is good for SKR habitat. Right now, a lot of that habitat is a little bit unmanaged, and so creating those super wide fuel breaks not only protects public property and life, but it also enhances kangaroo rat habitat in those areas. So they went down 2.5 miles worth of fuel breaks were installed. At Lake Matthews, we removed the last remaining 80 acres of dead citrus trees. So a lot of Lake Matthews was a former commercial citrus operation. There was hundreds and hundreds of acres of dead citrus remaining there when I got there 11 years ago, and it's been on my bucket list to remove all that and create a more natural setting. And by removing it, it allows us to go in there and do controlled burns that would get the non-native grasses down and enhance SKR habitat. We can do mowing and whatnot, but first we have to get all that out of there. Last year was a big push. We got 300 acres out. This was the remaining 80 acres, so they were able to do that. That was the first picture I think you might have saw with them chipping it. Again, Scott and our other tech who has recently joined the Army, he'll be back in November, but they were able to supervise that. The BLM donated the chipper, so that was free as well. So it was a great project with a lot of collaboration. And then also we removed all the tamarisk and tobacco tree. They're invasive species. They create ladder fuels. They get up in, so it burns, it gets higher, and then it gets into the canopies, and that's when those Santa Ana winds will take those embers for miles and wind up burning a lot of uncontrolled wildfire, a lot of habitat, a lot of potentially houses is when it gets up into those canopies. So we removed all those in the Lake Matthews area. In addition, we used the crew time to install about 2 miles of fire line. So if you're around the Lake Matthews area next week on March 24th, or I'm sorry, May 24th and 25th, we're going to be conducting a prescribed fire. It's about 450 acres in size for SKR habitat. Welcome to stop by. It's something to behold. It's actually, we work to do out with CAL FIRE under their VMP. They're holding their training class for new firemen, so it's a good thing to train the public safety, and we get our habitat management out of it as well. So if you're swing by El Sobrante, we'll get you in there and get you a hat, and you can sit there and watch us light up a lot of land for SKR habitat. We did all the archaeological sensitive habitat, all the fuel breaks, everything was installed. It took a tremendous amount of work the last 3 months. We've been working on it. We're still waiting for MWD. It's on MWD's land technically. They are signing the RM75 form this week. So And in addition to that, on the south side of Cajalco, near our property, the BLM hosted a fire investigators course. So what I'm trying to get at, our land isn't just existing for kangaroo rats, and a lot of times that's what you hear. We try to make it available for public safety, for other purposes as well. And this was a great opportunity. The BLM needed a place to host a fire investigators course where they can train new investigators on fire origin, cause of ignition, those kind of things. And so the class was hosted by the BLM, but it was available to everybody in Southern California, local fire companies, state fire companies, county fire companies, that kind of thing. And so we had people come from all over to our area, and they lit up some land and then had the fire igniters or fire training class there, which is a great way to get habitat burned and also help train the fire investigators. And so, switching gears a little bit, it came to our attention through some public input that we weren't doing a great job of patrolling in certain areas. And this is really my fault. When we started getting multiple people doing it, a couple years ago it was just me, and I knew where I went. When you start getting multiple people going places, we found that we were maybe redundant in some areas and maybe ignoring some other areas. And sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If we have a fence breaker and we know trespassing is over here, we spend a huge amount of time here, and maybe that's at the detriment of over here. So what I had Harry Sandoval do, our WRCOG senior biologist, is come up with a way of how do we track this? How do we know where to go, and how do we schedule this kind of thing? So Harry created a really cool way of doing it, and I'm going to skip ahead here. And so all of us carry smartphones, and so that collector app that we were talking about that we developed for kangaroo rat monitoring that Princess noted, we developed that for basically habitat recording, so all the data was in one central repository, but interestingly enough, you can use it for a lot of other things. And so this is just 1 day, or 1 week of Scott's travels time. And so that is taking point data everywhere he goes every minute. And so it's tracking him. And so when we all started using our phones, it got really busy of a map, so I didn't put it up here. But it showed, basically, he created a heat map. And so that heat map, where it's white, it shows that we spent a lot of time there. Where it's red, it's a little less, and where it's blue, it's not so much. And what you'll notice is, even in the upper left-hand corner, there's no blue, there's no color. We were completely missing that. We were spending a lot of time over here in the western boundary, because that's where a lot of the off-road activity was coming up through that area, from the Dos Lagos Golf Course area. They were riding up the hills and into our reserve, and so we were spending a lot of time over there. Some of the land in the south, it's just you can't get in there. There's no road. So you'll see there's one main road that we travel through. But anyway, what came of this is we realized there was data gaps or coverage gaps, and so we reformulated it. And so now we're hopefully being more visible in other areas and not spending so much time trying to hold back. And we've made some signage increases and stuff in those high incident areas, beefed up our fencing so we can move that time to other areas. So far, the public has been very receptive. We had a few people stop in the reserve office, say, I'm glad to see you guys are now out there, blah, blah, blah. So it is hopefully working really well. From the initial public response, it seems to be working really well. Let's get back ahead here. And then finally, just real quickly, we're contracted to do not just kangaroo rat monitoring, but there's 65 other species we have to take care of. And one of the things that was kind of cool that came up is this bat monitoring. So there's 5 species of bats covered at Lake Matthews. We have to monitor them. There wasn't a whole lot of staff time dedicated to this. So we went to a company out of Massachusetts and basically got a recorder. This thing has an ultrasonic recorder. It records these bats, and then the neat thing about it is it runs it through this software program. And so the green there are these peaks. If you would picture your voice, there's certain inflections in your voice. And so it matches up the recordings with those peaks, and then it spits you out this probability of it being a 100% match. So it's almost labor-free. We go around and change SD cards, and you get this really, some of them scores are really low, but sometimes you get a 100% score, 90% score, and you're very confident that species is there. And so those are the species we found out there, more than we thought. There's quite a bit of activity out there. The highlighted ones are the covered species. And so we found all our covered species in addition to a lot of other things being used out there. So, you know, when you go to expand projects, say Cajalco Road relamping, you know you got your stuff covered. So some of this stuff, this monitoring data, can be beneficial for infrastructure and stuff like that. When you go to put these infrastructures in under CEQA, you have to do a whole exploration of the available data and stuff. And oftentimes that historical data is not there. And so you can see that this stuff is there. It's covered under an MSHCP, so therefore it kind of clears the road more or less for some of these infrastructure projects. So anyway, it's a great thing to have. It was super easy, and all we had to do is run around and basically, like I said, change out SD cards. So,
Very cool.
you know, John McCain, somebody I look up to quite a bit, and he's, you know, under weather right now. And so I thought this was an appropriate quote for Senator John McCain. So, any questions?
No, sir. Any questions?
No, but I bet we could sell that tracking system to the parents of 16-year-old drivers.
You might not want to know where they go. But it's neat. And it's similar to what law enforcement uses on a larger scale. And they track their units and stuff, and they were able to do it. So we kind of copied that, but it worked out really well.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We'll try not to pick on you much more in the future. And okay, no requests from the public on that item, of course.
No, sir.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so that moves us on to item number 8, report from our general manager. Unfortunately, our general manager had to leave.
However, Mr. Chair, we do have one announcement under that.
We do?
Item,
All
yes.
right, well then, let's hear it.
We do. So I would like to introduce Jonathan Dallas. And Jonathan is our intern. He's been working with us over the past year. This June, he's going to be graduating with a degree in public policy from UCR. And he's continuing on with his master's degree. And I believe he's going to also be at UCR for his master's degree. But Jonathan's been helping out a lot the past year with the agency and helping us, especially with our educational outreach and working on some of the projects. So we're going to keep him on, hopefully, before he leaves us. But I just wanted to introduce him to you.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. Thank you for your service, and thanks for sticking around for a little longer, and welcome to Scott, too. And you guys, thank you so much for being part of the team. Good luck to you. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to item number 10, any items for future agendas. If anybody has anything that they'd like to see, they can go ahead and discuss that. You can also bring this up after the meeting. We have emails. We can go ahead and work new items into the agenda if that is the desire from the members. Item number 10, general announcements. Any of the members have any general announcements? Anything they'd like to say? All right.